Roberto, ¿por qué matar a su niño y Josue?
In exchange for the plea, prosecutors will not seek the death penalty, but prosecutors are satisfied that he won't be able to appeal.
There's really a question as to what would happen with regard to the death penalty anyway. Child cases specifically, they never leave you from the standpoint of the thoughts that you have about those children and how their lives ended.
Roberto's girlfriend and mother of his children, Gabriela Guevara, is still behind bars, charged with 5 counts of accessory. Ismenia's family says they want her held responsible as well.
Justice is not done yet. We got one more. It's coming up, so they're both guilty, so they both got to pay for what they did.
The year 2015 had definitely not started the best way for 45-year-old Jesus Ismenia Marinero. She had been continuously harassed by men, her home plagued by break-ins since the January before, mysteriously catching fire in late April, causing her and her 2 young children to move in with a relative. Things were so bad, Ismenia told a friend she feared for her life and asked her to watch over her sons should anything ever happen to her. Still, nobody could have known Ismenia's worst fears would come true just a few weeks later. In 2015, Ismenia Marinero had been living in Omaha for nearly 15 years. Her son from a previous relationship, 25-year-old Roberto Martinez Marinero, had moved from El Salvador to Omaha 5 years after his mother. According to his relatives, Roberto had always been a good boy, the favourite amongst his grandmother's 25 grandchildren. However, things changed when Roberto began dating a woman named Gabriela Guevara in high school. Apparently, Roberto grew distant from his family, especially after the two had children of their own, which caused arguments between him and Ismenia. Another topic that caused problems in the mother and son relationship was money. According to her niece, Ismenia had always worked really hard to provide her children with a better life, but Roberto kept asking for more and more money, even though he already lived in his own house. Ismenia eventually needed to say no. She did not have that much money in the first place, and she also had Roberto's 2 half-brothers, 4-year-old Josue and 11-month-old Angel to take care of, and yet Roberto kept insisting. In the past, the family have even urged Ismenia to move the younger siblings out of Omaha, but the mother had said she would never leave Roberto alone in Nebraska. If Ismenia had listened, the following events might never have happened. In May 2015, Roberto and his mother had been arguing again over money issues for several days, non-stop. Finally, on the night of May the 5th, the argument came to its end, but in the worst possible way. The next day, around 5:45 PM, La Vista police were called to Alpine Village Apartments near 85th and Harrison. A passerby had heard crying and found a bruised little boy wearing nothing but a diaper in a dumpster. Just a couple of hours later, a deceased woman was discovered at 4th and Cedar Street. Soon, the police began to investigate a possible link between the cases. The next day, they identified the infant as Angel Ramirez-Marinero and the woman as his mother, Ismenia Marinero. An Amber Alert was initially issued for Josue Ramirez-Marinero, with a description of the vehicle believed to be connected to the boy's disappearance. The Jeep in question was later located empty at 2119 Arbor Street Thursday afternoon. As a result, the Amber Alert was cancelled, but still there was no sign of Josue. Then, around 9 PM the same evening, Roberto Martinez Marinero suddenly walked into Douglas County Corrections and told the officers he was involved in the death of his own mother. According to Roberto, his mother had arrived at his house on Tuesday night together with his half-brothers. Apparently, Ismenia had hit Roberto and accused him of putting his girlfriend and children before the rest of the family. For some reason, Roberto said he had become enraged and bludgeoned his mother with a baseball bat, then went to the kitchen, retrieved a knife and stabbed Ismenia over 20 times in her upper body. Despite the brutality of the attack, the mother was still alive at this point. Roberto and his girlfriend, Gabriela, then carried Ismenia out of the apartment and stuffed her into the trunk of his car. CCTV footage from the house opposite showed that Roberto drove away in that car while Gabriela followed him in Ismenia's SUV with the children. The two left seriously injured Ismenia, in a southeast Omaha ditch where she eventually died from her wounds. Next, Roberto threw his 4-year-old half-brother Josue into the Elkhorn River from the West Center Road bridge. Lastly, he dumped his other half-brother, 11-month-old Angel, into La Vista dumpster. By the time Roberto gave his confession, Ismenia and Angel had already been found, but Josue was still missing. Roberto said that when he had thrown the 4-year-old to the river, the boy was still alive. On Friday night, Omaha police, FBI agents and family members were desperately searching for him, hoping for a miracle that Josue had somehow survived. Sadly, the 4-year-old's body was found stuck in tree branches along Elkhorn River 3 days later, on Monday, May the 11th. That same day, Douglas County Attorney Don Kleiner announced Roberto Martinez Marinero was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Roberto's girlfriend Gabriela Guevara was also arrested and charged with accessory to murder. To avoid trial and the possibility of the death penalty, Roberto made a plea deal with prosecutors immediately after he pleaded guilty to the murders of his mother and brother. The judge sentenced Roberto Martinez Marinero to 2 consecutive life sentences and an additional 5 years on a weapons charge. He will never see another day outside the prison. Gabriela pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of being an accessory and asked the judge to throw out her statements to the police. However, as there was clear evidence including CCTV footage of her involvement in the crime, Gabriela was found guilty and sentenced to 6 to 14 years in prison. Since then, she has been denied parole more than once but will likely be released and deported earlier this year. Little Angel, who survived the attack, was reunited with his father and other family members who were wondering how one day they could tell the boy what had happened to his mother and 2 brothers.